Yes, it's the start of week 4 in the NFL. Dolphins and Bengals. This is a good one. Miami, one of 2 unbeatens, as I mentioned, in the NFL. The Bengals coming off their first win at 1-2. Joe Burrow, top pick of the 2020 draft, as you just heard. 13 wins in the regular season, but he does have a win in the AFC Championship just last year. Tua, 4 picks later in 2020, has won 16 of his 24 pro starts. You can see Cincinnati, surprisingly, a league-low 4.5 yards per play this season, fewest by a Super Bowl team through 3 games since the 2013 Ravens. All right, let's welcome in CBS NFL analyst Charles Davis. And Charles, it's a game that features the 1st and 5th picks of that 20 draft. This could be a move over Jimmy Johnson, as Miami head coach Mike McDaniel could be the Fins' only head coach to start his career 4-0. The Dolphins coming off wins over the Ravens and Bills, awfully impressive. I mentioned Tua banged up. Clearly, they'll need him at full strength. Charles, what do you see as keys for Miami to remain unbeaten?
Well, first of all, good to see you, Jim. My apologies for not being suited like you are, because you're looking good and I'm a little dressed down here. Had to get out ahead of the hurricane, so I had to get on the road. My apologies. But look, for the keys for Miami in this one, let's go back. My crew, my team, Ian Eagle and Evan Washburn, myself, we did the Bengals Jets on Sunday. And one of the things the Jets did pretty well, but not well enough, was they pressured Joe Burrow, and they kept him hemmed into the pocket for the most part, but he found a way out a lot. And that's one of the things that has to happen in this ball game for Miami, is to make sure you keep Burrow back in that pocket and keep putting hits on him and the whole deal. Not because he can't handle the hits. His toughness is unquestioned, but it disrupts what Cincinnati does on offense. It changes their timing, their continuity, their ability to go into their playbook, because it's a whole different deal when you're calling plays on 3rd and short as it is calling plays on 3rd and 7, 8, 10. And that's what the Dolphins need to do. And by the way, the Jets only put him on the ground twice for sacks.
Right.
But there's still 15 sacks they've given up so far this season.
Right.
So they are vulnerable there. The second part, big plays. If you're the Dolphins on offense, Tua Tagovailoa, when he throws that football, throw it to strike, throw it to hurt, throw it to go ahead and put that dagger shot in there. You've got Tyreek Hill. You've got Jalen Waddle. I think Mike Gesicki, the tight end's got to get a little bit more involved. They want to run it more with Chase Edmonds, but big plays over the top and downfield. You know why? Because Cincinnati's defense is so experienced, has such great continuity themselves. They know where each player is going to be and have a big Rolodex of defenses. And when you do get a good play, you better take full advantage of it. And that's what I think the Dolphins have to do in this one.
Yeah, Charles, nobody's talking about Tua dinking and dunking anymore, right? Now that he has those weapons on the outside.
Hey, did you see that shot he threw against Buffalo?
Yeah.
That one threw to River Craycraft?
That's right.
And if you had River Craycraft catching a big touchdown against Buffalo prior to that game, then we need to hang out more, because we need to go start playing the lottery. No one had it, but he threw that shot to him, came up off the practice squad and made the big play. And folks, when you hear practice squad nowadays, don't look at it the way you did before. Practice squad now is almost part of the roster.
Yeah.
They practice with them, they're with them, they come up, but they've been through all the stuff. It's a different thing nowadays. Anyway, enough of that.
Players get elevated on game day as well.
They've been practicing all week.
That's right. For the Bengals, now you touched on this, it's all about giving Joe Burrow some time to breathe. He was sacked 13 times, threw 4 picks in the first 2 games, both losses. Last week's game against the Jets, as you touched down, sacked twice, didn't throw the ball in the hands of the opposing team, which was Cincinnati's first win. As you look at the Bengals' game plan to even their record, what are the keys for Cincinnati?
Well, Joe Mixon's, going into last week, he had touched the ball more than anyone in the league, both in the running game and total touches. So getting him the ball wasn't the issue. It's getting him the ball and allowing him to do things with it that's the issue. They've got to get that guy going. He had a 31-yard run against Pittsburgh in the opener. I think he's had a couple 10-plus runs since then. Not nearly enough explosive runs, because he is hemmed in all the time. This offensive line that's struggled to protect Joe Burrow, they're struggling to create space for Joe Mixon, and they will swing it out to him. They will throw it to him. They need to let the 225 pounds have an effect on defenses by being able to run the football and let him get his pads square and feed those pads to defenders downfield. Early on, that hasn't happened nearly enough. In fact, the best run Sunday came from Samaje Perine closing out the ball game. And I know Joe Mixon was on the sidelines going, where was that when I was in? Give me a shot. Because if they get him going, they'll be just fine. The second part is impact plays on defense. I mentioned that huge Rolodex that they have of calls. They can play any situation. They're not afraid to change things up. I think Lou Anarumo, their defense coordinator, is one of the better coordinators in the league. And to me, he should be a head coaching candidate. Like, he has everything that you're looking for. But they want to get going on defense as fast as they want their offense to go. Impact plays means tackles for losses, sacks, takeaways, big hits in the secondary, big hits on running backs. They got that done against the Jets. They got off to a really nice start. They're going to need to do the exact same thing, because you can't allow Miami to have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle running unencumbered downfield. Change up the timing, chip away at them, send people at them. And when they do catch it, do your best to put a little hit on them.
Yeah, no yak there for the Fins.
None.
Again, while Miami has had some impressive wins to begin this season, 3-0, we should remember it's the Bengals that are the defending AFC champs despite the 1-2 start, and they are home. So, Charles, who wins and why?
I'm going to tell you, Jim, this Miami team, if anyone's thinking that they're a fluke, I think that they're wrong. This is a good roster going into the season. Mike McDaniel's proven himself to be a good head coach for this team. I think he was exactly what they were looking for because of how he is treating Tua. And Tua has responded and blossomed because of that. Defense stayed intact, coordinator, everything. But I like this Bengals team in this ballgame Thursday night, and here's why. They need it badly. They played a little bit better, but still not totally up to capabilities. It's a really talented roster that needs to get activated. They're playing at home. But remember this, Miami just played in that 100-degree heat, and while they may be acclimated to it, they played a lot of plays, okay? Buffalo's offense ran 90 plays in that game. So Miami's defense, let's see what they have in the tank. Let's see what they have in there as Cincinnati comes out and plays a little bit quicker tempo and goes at them. I like Cincinnati at home in this one for them to get right at 2-2. It doesn't mean the Dolphins have a bad team if they drop to 3-1.
Yeah, it would be Miami's first loss in 4 kickoffs this season. Our thanks to CBS NFL analyst Charles Davis, who got out of Dodge in the Sunshine State ahead of the storm. Charles, we always appreciate the insight.
Thank you very much. My best to everyone who's going to be affected by Hurricane Ian, excuse me. It's Ian to me because of my partner. But I certainly hope that everyone's going to be okay back in the Florida area.
Absolutely, Charles. So this is what it looks like. They're split down the middle regarding the percentage of wagers on the spread in this game. 50-50. Caesars Sportsbook has it with money. Miami getting 4 points. The Bengals giving it up, and Charles has them winning it outright.
All right, time to welcome in the czar of the playbook, Emory Hunt, and the maestro, Larry Hartstein, for their take on TNF tonight. Fellas, let's kick this off with Thursday Night Football between the Dolphins and the Bengals. The Dolphins roll into the jungle as one of 2 undefeated teams left in the league, but that doesn't matter to odds makers. However, because they suggest this is a letdown looming for the Fins. Bengals -4, over under 47. Emory, how do you see it?
You know, you hit the nail right on the head, Katie. It is a letdown, but not in the sense that people view it as the Dolphins are overrated, kind of like how Charles talked about it. I just see the Bengals in a better position right now, a little bit healthier coming in, especially at quarterback. So I'm going to lay those points with the Bengals. I like their depth in the backfield. I like what they bring to the table on the perimeter. And I think because Tua is coming in a little bit banged up, I know they were like, oh, it was just the back issue that caused him to kind of falter a little bit. Yeah, it was something else. And I think because of all of that, that defense will take advantage and force their hand. So I like the Bengals here to win straight up and also obviously on the point spread.
Katie and Emory, this is the worst spot any team has faced all season. When you have to have 92 snaps in extreme heat, there were 2 plays called back by penalty, so they actually were on the field for 92 snaps. And I know they rotated in some guys, but still, and then have to play on a Thursday night. The analytics guru, Clev TA, pointed out that's only happened once in the last 22 years that a team has had that many plays and has had to go play on Thursday night, and it's on the road. And the first time it happened, which was 6 years ago, did not work out well. The Bucs were the team, and they gave up 43 points in a blowout loss because they were so tired. All of that said, even though the spot, the desperation, all favor Cincinnati, plus the injury report, which Emory mentioned, I think there's 2 key points here. The Bengals are the worst offense in the NFL so far in terms of yards per play, only 4.5 yards per play. and kind of overshadowed. They lost their defensive leader, their anchor, the team captain, DJ Reader, the nose tackle. He's out for this game. So with all of that said, I think the Bengals probably win. If this was 1 or 2, I would probably lay the points with the Bengals. But just with all that offense and all that speed, you got to think that Tua can come through the back door, even if they're down 10, and lose it by a field goal. So reluctantly, I'll take the point.
The public is split 50-50 on this game, and so are our experts. Now let's move on to some player props. Emory, what has your eye, or your attention rather, for the Dolphins?
Because I feel like Tua is still suffering from playing in that ball game, I think they'll lean more into the run game. That's the best way to keep this game close. That's the best way to get your sea legs underneath you in a situation where you're playing on a short week after you've played a lot of snaps the previous week before. So I feel like the run game is going to be key, which means Chase Edmonds over 33.5 rushing yards to me is an easy bet because he's a chunk playmaker. He's someone that can get this in one carry. So stretch that over the course of a full game of four quarters. I feel like he'll easily crush this number. That's an easy bet for me to make.
You know, Tyreek Hill had 2 monster games, 25 targets, 284 yards, and then a very quiet week 3. But the Dolphins had the ball for less than 20 minutes. They only had 20 pass plays. And we know what he said about Eli Apple. He didn't appreciate Eli Apple changing the course of that AFC title game by tackling him right before halftime. And he wants payback. And Tua has said, I'm going to throw it to him. I think he gets one big play, at least over 25.5 yards, longest reception for Tyreek Hill.
I see your Tyreek longest reception prop, Larry. I'm going to raise you for an anytime touchdown at plus 135, just for the simple fact, and you just said it, he is coming for quarterback Eli Apple, as we heard in his presser last week. Plus Waddle nursing the groin injury, all the more reason to feed the cheetah. Now time for the Bengals. Emory, what's your top player prop for Cincy?
First of all, we buried the lead here in this whole segment. The Bengals are wearing those white helmets. That should be at least worth 40 points alone. But because I feel like they're going to take full advantage of a defense that just got off of playing 90-something plays in the previous week in the heat down there in Florida, why not air it out, spread those defensive players out, and start peppering them with targets on a perimeter? That's going to lead me to say over 5.5 receptions for T. Higgins. I feel like because they're tired, you want to get them to continue to be tired, go up-tempo, go quick pace on offense with the passing game, start laying those targets out to those different options. Everyone has an opportunity here to eat on Thursday night, but I think T. Higgins going over 5.5 receptions because he has great hands. It may only take him 6 targets to hit this number, so I think he'll do just that against this Dolphin secondary.
The great Charles Davis talked about how the Bengals have to get Joe Mixon going. It hasn't happened for him on the ground, but I think in this game, he will have a lot of success through the air because the Dolphins, the one thing they do on defense, they give up a ton to running backs out of the backfield. 21 catches for about 150 yards, so that's 7 catches for 50 yards to the opposing team's running back. And Joe Mixon, 20 targets, that's second only to Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow, because the protection isn't there, is checking it down a lot to him. This number's on the rise. It was 18.5 this morning. Then it's 19.5. Now the juice is going up. I advise you, get this right now. Joe Mixon over 19.5 receiving.
That's Larry Hartstein and Emory Hunt. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's recap those picks. All right, our guys are split on the game side, but they love a few overs in the prop market for both the Bengals and the Dolphins. If you're looking for an under, however, you might want to look at Joe Burrow under 11.5 rush yards. Miami has not generated much pressure on opposing quarterbacks, so if Cincy's front can repeat the same performance as last week, Burrow will not need to use his legs as much. I'm just saying. And a reminder, on Sunday, you can catch some notable NFL games on CBS Sports and Paramount Plus, including the Bills at Ravens and Doug Peterson's return to Philadelphia.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.